And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. Today I'm joined by my co-hosts Josh and Erica. And yeah, there's some debate that went on. We got a lot of emails. There's some debate internally as well. Always fun when we have days like this. But for those joining, we're going to be talking a little bit about that polarizing RNC party platform. So we're going to, somehow people found a way to make this interesting and controversial. Usually platforms are kind of boring. We're going to go into some observations there. We had a lot of internal debate over the last few days and emails in. So we're going to talk a lot about that, talk a little bit about V predictions, snowballs in Congress, and then Josh really wanted to talk about wedding dress controversies today. He's a big say yes to the dress fan. So we're going to be getting to a little wedding dress talk towards the end of this as well. But if you want to help out.
To the what?
So if you want to help us out, subscribe, leave a like on this. Reviews help us out a ton. And it's going to be a great show. Thanks for joining us today on this Wednesday. So what we have up top here is the RNC party platform was released. A draft of it was released, rather. It's not the final version. And pro-lifers everywhere, especially on the internet, were shocked to learn that the pro-life plank of the platform was dropped. From Catholics, we're getting a range of reactions here. I think the first thing that we need to say before we go into this, we aren't like DC socialites. We're not paid by any platform. My social status is irrelevant in the DC circles. I live in Indiana. We are everyday normal Catholics, just like you. Maybe Josh isn't. I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, even if you live in DC, you still would be irrelevant. That's the point. It doesn't matter where.
You would just feel like you had relevance.
Exactly. Like, I'm not going to get disinvited to any dinner parties for my takes on the pro-life party platform. So I just would like to say we're right there with you. Being pro-life in America is challenging. There's been a lot of work that's been done. A lot of people have different perspectives on how that relates to politics. And we're here to talk about it all. But we're right there with you. This drops. We see that it got dropped from the platform. Frustrating in some ways, but we talked a little bit about the J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio thing. Erica, could we just get to where we're at right now with the RNC platform, why some people were surprised about this?
Yeah, so just a quick rundown, refresher course from Monday's show. In the GOP platform is the plank in it starting in about 1984 and all the way through 2016 and 2020 elections. The party was very forcefully pro-life. So citing specifics like the Human Life Amendment, also the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, and talking, the platform was resolutely pro-life. It's hard to characterize it in any other way. What we got out of the draft that is coming for the 2024 campaign, first of all, the entire platform has been it's just been overhauled. I mean, it is more like a bullet points of
Another
action.
way to put it, yeah.
It's so much more readable. So I do appreciate that. On the pro-life issue, especially, and Josh told me not to just read it, but I'm just going to read this one because it's bullet points. So sorry, Josh. It came to this. It says, now, we believe that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States guarantees that no person can be denied life or liberty without due process, and that the states, therefore, are free to pass laws protecting those rights. After 51 years, because of us, referring to the Dobbs decision, that power has been given to the states and to a vote of the people. We will oppose late-term abortion while supporting mothers and policies that advance prenatal care, access to birth control, and IVF, in parentheses, fertility treatments. So that's what it's been boiled down to now, from a much longer and much more robust discussion of the pro-life platform and the dignity of the human person and human life. That's where the disappointment comes in. So that's where we're at the moment. In terms of pro-life walkbacks, it's been characterized as some. I would, however, like to just take a minute to compare it to the Democratic platform. And I just want to make it clear, like, we are 100% pro-life. The goal is an America where every abortion is not only banned under law, but it's just unthinkable because the culture of life has triumphed in our culture. Here's our option, though. Here's what the Democrat platform says. And this is the 2020 platform. We're not expecting many changes. They haven't rolled out their 2024 yet. Democrats oppose and will fight to overturn federal and state laws that create barriers to reproductive health and rights, read abortion. It goes on. We will repeal the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits taxpayer funding of abortion. We will protect and codify the right to reproductive freedom. And they're talking about either a constitutional amendment or a federal law that will codify what was Roe v. Wade, a Supreme Court decision, into federal law. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the choices before us. Rundown.
Yeah, and just to add a little context to it, I mean, the Trump campaign contacted Catholic Vote about the platform change in language, and we said, look, if you contain any statements affirming IVF, we're not going to do it. We're not going to sign it. We understand that they have an election to try to win, and they have to be nimble, and we're glad that they kept the language about the 14th Amendment. In general, overall, the platform's pretty good. We wish it just didn't include the stuff for the IVF, and that's why we said we would not sign on to it. But in general, the reason why other pro-life groups like Susan B. Anthony List and Students for Life are happy with the language for the most part, not the IVF stuff, but I mean, mostly happy with the language of this is because there was backroom attempts to try to gut the 14th Amendment part of it, and they wanted to keep that in there. It's like that's a principle that we hold true to it. And it is kind of like, it does feel like it's like the Declaration of Independence in some ways, in this sense that there are still principles in here that in this platform that would contradict some of the planks that they have. So like the support for IVF. I mean, if you think about it truly, if you really believe pro-life stuff should be in there, we believe that's eventually going to, that, as Erica says, we fight to build the future America where people also recognize that as a violation of the dignity of the human person. So, but that's going to take a while. I like to try to remind people, not only would you not get 60 senators in the Senate to get rid of IVF, I doubt you get 20. You might not even get 10. So the question that you have to face yourself with political reality is, what are the issues that are actually in what they refer to it? There's this thing in politics they call the Overton Window, which is, Glenn Beck was the one who popularized this. Actually, I knew Joe Overton. And it's this idea that there's only a range of options that are at any moment politically palatable to people. So right now, you could try to convince the American people, have an argument, hey, should we ban IVF? It's like, you can have that argument. The American people, they're not even willing to consider that. But they are willing to consider, hey, should we ban late-term abortions? Hey, should we let states ban abortions? That argument itself, whether or not allowing states to protect unborn children, by banning abortion, that was considered radical or extreme, not even that long ago. And we do have Donald Trump and his 3 pro-life appointments to the court to thank for changing that window. So again, some people are frustrated with how the platform ended up, but I have to say, I remain more happy with President Trump's first term in office, like his actual record. So I understand when politicians run for office, we have been so used to politicians saying the right things and writing the right things down on paper before the election, and then after the election, they screw us. Donald Trump is the first person in my lifetime who actually governed better than they campaigned. So maybe he understands, like, hey, you have to be a little bit more nimble during an election season. You don't want to commit to things. You kind of want to hedge your stuff. And a lot of conservatives have been so frustrated by being burned, they want to lock down the candidates. And no, you've signed this pledge, do this thing. And actually, it's because we're so used to losing. And I have to give credit to Trump actually being a little bit more nimble in the election. Like, I don't know about signing that. I don't know about this pledge. And then he gets in there and he puts great people in office. Not everybody, obviously. I think having his daughter in the White House was terrible. Thankfully, she said she's not going to do that in a second Trump term. But his record, I care more about his record, and I expect a second Trump administration's record to look a lot like the first, more so than this kind of the machinations of a party platform is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and there's been a range of reactions. I think to that point, there are a lot of people that have advantage of not being the man in the arena, as I'm saying. Like if Mike Pence, for example, comes out with a statement, which I agree with, like he's very pro-life, he's principled. Me as a Catholic believe the same thing. He is not running for president of the United States. Robbie George comes out with a statement as well. A man I respect in a perspective.
Well, and
I
he's a
respect as
professor
well.
too. So
He's a professor. So
they care about principles a lot, and principles are important. I get it.
Right. But my point is, you're not the man in the arena. And I think that even just understanding like how politics works, like when you, at least in America, you run for your primary, you run hard. You go hard down the right or the left, and you try to attract the most people. By the time you get into the general, you're basically trying to become as palatable as possible to independents to win people over to win that general election. Once you get in, you're in. There's no way to take you. I mean, they tried their best to take out Trump. You're in. And then you get to appoint your people. You get to appoint your agenda, which they're terrified of this Project 2025 is being used as some type of like, I don't know, boogeyman, whatever. But I think that there's a place for the one issue organizations, the pro-life organizations to always stand strong in that principle. And I would never tell them to do anything different.
I agree.
But by the time
Catholic
it gets
puts in
to
the same.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm never going to say anything other than that. But when it comes to politics, when it comes to the JD Vances, when it comes to the Rubios, when it comes to the Trumps, like the ideological purity is not something that they have the luxury of being able to keep if they want to message to most of the country here at this point.
Right.
And even I'm even realizing how easy it is to be a liberal reporter. I was thinking more in that JD Vance interview. I'm like, if I'm a liberal reporter, I'm going to be like, hey, JD Vance, do you think that would you support the right of same-sex couples to stay married legally? JD Vance is Catholic. He says he's Catholic. As a Catholic, you by religion oppose that. But do you think he's going to pick that? Why would he pick a fight that he knows he cannot win, that the American people are not ready for? It's the same thing with IVS. The American people are not ready for a ban on IVF. The American people are not ready for a ban on contraception. As a Catholic, it's like these journalists know what Catholic teaching are, so they can hit them on them and put them in this position.
Yeah,
we need to pick fights that we can win. I'm tired of like having these purity tests on our people on stupid stuff that there's never going to be votes for. It's not that it's stupid, but I'm just saying like the tactics are stupid. They're not serious. They're not actually about change or how to improve. So maybe I'm just tired of principled losers is how I feel right now. Like I'm really tired of like Trump delivers this big victory. Trump, by all accounts, is a playboy billionaire who delivers maybe the biggest pro-life victory of my lifetime. I marched my entire life with nothing changing. And so it's like, do I need the person who delivers the victory to be a saint? No, I don't think so. And that's why we have these prudential decisions as Catholics when it comes to politics. I'm not voting for people to be like an ideological hero.
So
I don't know.
You mentioned Pence. That's actually a great example because when he was a talk show host and then a member of Congress in a pretty safe Republican district, it's easy for him to have courage and say, this is the standard we need to do. And then he gets elected, and then now he was vice president. He was picked by Trump to be his vice president to kind of vouch for the people who were worried about Trump wavering, right? And then he runs for president for about 15 minutes and then burns out. And he's kind of sitting now on the backbench knowing he's not going to be picked for repeat again. He's like, it just shows that Trump is not doing his thing. And he's got, he's annoyed at Trump because, the whole back and forth they had over Jan 6. And so it's kind of easy for him to kind of sit back and throw darts. But the fact of the matter is when Pence was in a position of actual consequence of power, which was as governor of Indiana, and there was a critical issue over religious liberty, and the big corporations in the state came a-knocking, he folded like a cheap tent. So this idea, look, Donald Trump had more fortitude when things were coming at him than Pence had against, big pharma in Indiana, and so I just want to push back against this idea. Like, again, now when Pence was in the arena, he kind of collapsed. And when he's now not in the arena really anymore, he's throwing these darts again. Oh, you're not as courageous as me.
Yeah.
So I want to be careful though, because while I am not of the Ed Fezer has come out and said, I'm just removing myself. No one can vote for Trump. We just can't even vote. Or there's a whole group of Catholics online who are like, now we have to form a third party, which is a fairy tale when it comes to actually making changes. Like American Solidarity Party, love your platform, but there's like 9 of you. They were excited this morning because they added 900 members yesterday. I'm like, 900 guys. Like to actually push back on this. We are facing a Biden regime that brooks no opposition. Like if they win again, it's going to be hands off. They weaponize against pro-lifers there. I could go on. And I will in a moment. But where I want to be careful is when we start saying things like, okay, some of us have the luxury of standing by our principles and being purists, and some of us have the duty to do that, right? That's our role. But then someone like JD Vance, if he wants to win, he doesn't have that luxury. That's where I start to struggle myself, because Trump himself, he's not a Catholic. He does not believe the way that we believe. And I'm going to pray that he's invincibly ignorant and he is not beholden to any of that. But at the same time, someone like JD Vance, he is a professed Catholic. He's going to have to make some really hard decisions. And I know you don't like principled losers, but I also don't like unprincipled sellouts. You don't want to have a situation where, okay, some Catholics need to sacrifice their conscience. Some Catholics, they're just going to have to go out there and sell their soul to the devil so that we can have a winner. And I think that is I said this Monday, this is a very dangerous game to play, where, if you're out there, you're under pressure, you cave in the arena, and you're like, well, at least he won. At least he got into office, or he got the VP.
Yeah, but I guess I just wish.
Josh, actually, can I respond, because she specifically spoke to me, which, Eric, I appreciate. This is great. I think what Trump revealed in this entire conversation is how disingenuous media and institutions are, and they're picking on fights and questions that are disingenuous in nature. So basically, this whole thing spurned from JD Vance, and the RNC platform, different discussion, but the JD Vance thing spurned from a very disingenuous question about something that is not a political reality. And so she now gets to hammer him on something. He basically was just like, I can't get the votes for this. It doesn't matter. Like, now I'm just giving it to you as a hammer against me for all these other things. So internally, he might not even really believe that, but it's like, you're picking fights that are unwinnable.
I would give that to you if it wasn't coupled with the fact that he also signed the IVF thing in the Senate.
That was also disingenuous.
It's actually the same point.
Exact same point. And Josh and I talked about this too. The signing that thing was basically, there's no way for a path forward to ban this anyway. So why even take this up as a fight? This is basically just removing that from being a fight. And now you're going to say, I understand, like, well, your name's associated with that and that. But what I'm trying to say is, this is the game. And what Trump broke about the game is a lot of the tactics used by politicians and media are disingenuous, and they put people of principle at risk, because what Democrats do is they don't have principles. They're able to move and shift and whatever, and that's how they gain power. Right. But you're trying to disingenuously pit people against the principle.
Imagine Senator J.D. Vance trying to explain to a hostile reporter, Christian Walker, this, Pope John Paul II's principle of, trying to limit harm and
of an unjust law. Yeah.
And incremental gains and this kind of stuff, and say, basically, we want to punt on this question of IVF for a few more years until the American people are open to that possible discussion. Well, then she's just going to be like, well, wait a minute. And she's going to go after it and after it and after it again. It's like, it's like, again,
so like,
he made a prudential call to basically say, there's just nothing to gain from trying to, do this dance with this reporter.
And I think all of these are matters of prudence. And so what's going to happen in a fallen world is we're going to get Catholics of goodwill who disagree on the outer limits of those prudential calls. Where I struggle is, when does it kick in? So again, like, I'm going back to my hero, St. Thomas More. He held off saying anything about the accession of King Henry to the crown, the Church of England, to be the head of. He chose to remain silent as long as he could, and to punt it as long as he could. But at a certain point, there came a line where he could not go any further. And I think where that line lies for Catholic politicians who are in these positions, it is a very difficult question. And do we get it right all the time? No. Do we make the right call every single time? No. But it's important to continue to, I think this is where the role of these special interest groups and Catholics like you and I come in, is to continue to hold up the ideal so that the politicians who are in the arena continue to see that goal, right? That doesn't disappear from the political discourse. Because I think the concern is with the Republican platform becoming less specific. Yes, we still have the 14th Amendment. It's a movement in a direction where eventually we feel that all the gains that we've made could just evaporate. We're going to have to continue to have voices like Tom McCluskey, voices, like Susan B. Anthony List, Kristen Hawkins in there. So that it doesn't continue in that direction.
Well, we had a coworker say, basically, this is a both and. We need the Susan B. Anthonys. We need the rabble rousers. We need the people holding people's feet to the fire. I think we're going to continue to do that, no question.
Absolutely.
But you also, at the same time, need the J.D. Vances. You need the Trumps, who are going to be able to shapeshift, maybe get caught in some gotchas. But by the time they're in office, they're working, obviously, towards pro-life legislation. And so you have the feet to the fire there, you have the pressure, because often these people don't get any credit. And Anthony Esolen, who's like by far one of my favorite authors, had a great point on this. It's like, where were these people who are now criticizing when they were being called, theocratic fascists, Christian nationalists, smeared up and down, handmaid's tale? They weren't there defending J.D. Vance's name. They were, you know what I mean? Like, so they just get beat on all the time.
That really just, they feel like the person that like these politicians must court me. It's like, what the heck is this? Like, this isn't about you. Like, we have to try to do what we can in politics to advance the cause as much as possible. We make prudential calls. Some of those prudential calls turn out to be, mistakes. I mean, I get that, but then you fight to live to another day. You keep fighting, you keep pressing, you keep mobilizing and getting people involved, and you try to do your best. But just, you can't be despondent. You can't throw, your toys out and like, let's go. Let's keep moving forward. Let's try to get stuff done. And like, I mean, look, voting for a third party as a spoiler, sometimes you have to do that. But like the American Solidarity Party is not even close.
We're not there.
To I mean, like to me, voting for the American Solidarity Party is like peeing while wearing navy trousers. It might feel good, but no one's going to notice.
Yeah, and an evolution of the party platform, which I actually highly recommend everyone go read the draft of this right now. And if you have the time, compared to the 2016 platform. So it wasn't adjusted in 2020. It was the same platform in 2016 carried over. Josh, I know you love to talk about this, but it did feel very much like the previous platform felt like a 2000s. We're going to cut your taxes, use some warm and fuzzy language.
Almost 100 pages long.
Super long, super vague. And you get to now, and it's like, has there ever been any more evidence of like, this is like Trump's party? Like the platform was specific. It touched on hot button issues. It was short. It got right to it. I mean, we look at things. We will keep men out of women's sports.
There are a lot of good things about this platform, and you're right that it's so much more shorter. The reason why you make it shorter too, just in general, is like, why give fodder to the entire media, industrial complex to weaponize every last little point? Look what they're doing with Project 2025 from Heritage, as you noted at the beginning of this podcast. They are trying to look for boogeyman and like exploit things, and they take things so out of proportion. It's crazy. This is a republic where 80% of Americans think you should have an ID to vote. And we put that bill before Congress, and Democrats in unison vote no. Like, how is something that has 80% support? It's because you have a media that is so psycho that they'll never remember. I have made this point. I have to say it again. It's like Obama wanted to force Catholic nuns to pay for birth control. Nuns, who don't need birth control and would morally object to paying for it, why would they be forced to do it? And Mitt Romney's like, yeah, that really sounds like a violation of our First Amendment right to religious liberty. And the entire media is like, oh my gosh, Mitt Romney wants to get rid of your birth control. So I wish the people who are upset at Republicans making these kind of changes or prudential calls would at least understand and respect the fact that you have a media that is brainwashing half the country with just the worst lies. I mean,
Mhm.
you want to talk about gaslighting. I mean, it's crazy. So at
Yeah.
least say, okay, I can see why they try to make the platform shorter and tweak this. Obviously, I wish they wouldn't have put the IBF stuff in there. But I mean, like overall, it's like you do understand like the world we live in, right? I mean, you do understand
Yeah.
what's going on.
Like, I want to
Yeah,
pick fights we can win.
exactly. Yeah. We have to, we got to start winning. I want to draw a contrast, especially with the Republican Party platform, the new way that they're approaching the First Amendment. So they say, we are the defenders of the First Amendment right to religious liberty. It protects the right not only to worship, right, but also to act in accordance with those. And then if you flip over to the Democrat, what they're saying about religious liberty, and this is just in terms of the healthcare. So, like to take one specific example, they say, we reject the Trump administration's use of broad exemptions to allow medical providers, employers, and others to discriminate. And what they mean is they reject any conscience protection for medical providers, employers, and people
Right.
in
I
nurses,
mean,
et
you're
cetera,
even being nice on that. They want to force Catholic hospitals to perform
to
Yeah.
abortions.
perform abortions, right? And to do to again, yeah, force the nuns to pay for abortions and pay for contraception.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
what
Did you
that's
see the
the
contrast
choice.
on the border? I mean, if you
Oh,
want a
and the
clearer
border.
picture of two parties here, we have Republicans will secure the border, deport illegal aliens, and reverse Democrats' open border policies that have driven up the cost of housing, education, and healthcare for American families. Democrat side. Democrats believe it's long past time to provide a roadmap to citizen for the millions of undocumented workers, caregivers, students, and children who are an essential part of our economy and fabric of the nation. I mean, they're not even dancing around it. We're talking millions of people that let into the country.
I
It's
mean,
crazy.
again, that's an issue alone where you start to realize that they didn't import 10 million illegal immigrants in this country just to pick fruit. Like the Democrats want them to become future voters. And if people don't understand this and realize it could be lights out for our country as we know it. Yeah, you know what? A party platform, who reads these dang things? I mean, it's not that it's not important, but like, guys, I mean, we're talking about an invasion. We're talking about the extinction of our country and our rule of law. Like this is not sustainable. Like we see what's going on in Europe. Do we want that happening in our country? It's already starting, and we need to turn this ship around. We
Yeah.
need to have rule of law again. We need to know who's coming into our country, and just to have an open border where hundreds of thousands of people pour in every month, dude. I mean, this is going to be
It's
lights out.
unsustainable, yeah, no question. And even final point in all of this, for people that really dug deep, I mean, we've looked at this stuff for the past couple
Mhm.
days for hours. The interview, the JD Vance interview, the Marco Rubio interview, and I think back to the Trump debate. What they were doing in all of them, but besides the gotchas, were saying we're leaving the issue to the states, and we think that Democrats are extreme for wanting abortion on the 9th month. So going on offense. All three of them did this. This is all a winning playbook that we've all agreed upon, much better than the language of bans, as we've seen have largely failed everywhere. So when I think about the common good and working towards progress in the right sense on a political level, I'm thinking incremental. And
Right.
I'm going on offense. Those are all smart things. I've seen what's
Right.
lost. I've seen what's 15-week ban language has lost, and Democrats are using
Right.
it as a bludgeon.
Mhm.
So I want to be effective in what we're doing here. I'd rather gain small wins than feel good about, my principled takes that I get to put out online
Well,
and feel good about myself. I'd rather be winning. So I'm not going to just get out of the political process because I'm frustrated with a lack of
right.
exactly what I want. Like, this is what prudence is to me.
Well,
At least.
Tom, Erica talked about like how do you make these changes on, prudential calls and that kind of stuff. And I think to myself, when the Supreme Court, and we were fighting on the initial Dobbs case, and they were just fighting for the right to have a law protecting babies for the first 15 weeks. That was what it was initially about. And then the court changes, an additional, we were able to get one more pick on the court. It's like, whoa, wow, wait a minute now. We have a whole new ball game here. And what was it? The Attorney General Finch in Mississippi's like makes the prudential call, like, you know what, let's
We're going to go
just
for it.
ask the court if not only allow this measure of a 15-week ban, what if we said, really, it should be for the states to decide, whatever it would be. And the Supreme Court went along with it. And
Mhm.
so, again, I would just remind people, like, that only happened with a court that was 6-3, and it easily could be the case if a few thousand voters. Look, my state of Michigan went for Donald Trump in 2016 by 10,000 votes. The entire state of Michigan. We're talking millions of voters. That is tight. And Pennsylvania and Wisconsin were also very close. If Hillary had won, which, by the way, everyone loves to talk about how she's so unlikable and terrible candidate.
She was close.
She almost won.
She almost won.
She was very close. Yeah.
And if we hadn't held that seat open, then she's got that seat to fill. And then a few others, move along. And suddenly you're talking about a 6-3 court that's crushing religious freedom. Mm-hmm. That's smashing us on abortion.
Could have 3 Ketanji Brown Jacksons right on that.
Do you think you have states like Idaho and Texas and Florida that are able to pass these bills protecting babies if it were not for Trump's defeat of Hillary and the successive 3 big fights for Supreme Court nominations? Like, that's how this came about.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't, to me, it's easy to stand back and go, oh, they're squishes, they're being crappy, blah, 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 compromise. I can't sign off on this. Like, I'm not asking you to sign off on the platform. We didn't sign off on it. What I'm saying is his first record in office, his first term, his record was rock solid. That's what I support. And that's what I expect. And we said this to the Trump campaign, we expect a second Trump term to look a lot like the first Trump term. And actually, obviously, that's your best prediction of future performance is past performance.
And I want to point out too, like, we're talking about political solutions here. So I was mentioning, strategy and rhetoric and maneuvering and everything like that. In order to get the country ready for something that we're suggesting, like making abortion unthinkable and illegal in law, it needs to start with culture, in which we've largely lost and people have kind of abdicated. Mm-hmm. Clearly, we've lost whatever that battle it is. And
oh my gosh, I just thought of this.
So to me, and I want to say a lot of these people who are very upset about this, I deeply admire because of a lot of their commitments to changing culture and working on a very grassroots level to make abortion unthinkable. I think of like pregnancy resource centers. I think of doing really beautiful things like 40 Days for Life, David B. Wright, like a lot of those guys.
I think of people founding classical schools all over the country to turn
question. Or great priests who are talking about this issue. Yeah. Like if we had a Catholic Church united to essentially be a united front to call out Joe Biden for calling himself Catholic and then fighting for unlimited abortion, we probably wouldn't be in this same problem that we're in right now.
But I guess what I'm asking on the prudential call here is that when you have people who are, I think, pretty obviously clearly moving the ball in the right direction, and then you attack them for not being perfect about it, it would be like, let's say Senator Vance came forward with a bill banning cartoon porno books in schools. We would all be like, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, that book, Genderqueer, that should not be in school libraries. It should not be in public libraries. It's targeted at kids. It shows graphic depictions of nasty sexuality, but in cartoon form. And like, imagine then if someone said, "No, wait a minute, Senator, you're not banning pornography, so therefore I can't support this bill." It's like, wait, what? Like, and where do you stand on, shutting down all these other things? Like, whoa, like, let's have this debate on this, and let's win on this issue, and then we can try to move the ball forward. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think too, I was just thinking about transforming the culture. Part of what we're voting for this November is, again, Trump, not perfect. Republicans, not even perfect. But they don't hate your guts. But they don't hate you. The other option hates you. They hate the family. They hate your church.
And they want to put people like Mark Hawk in jail.
Exactly. So when we're talking about voting Republicans into office, voting Republicans into Congress, we're talking about creating the conditions in which we can be transforming the culture in such a way that eventually abortion is unthinkable. The Biden regime, if the leftist Democrats come back in, they are going to so choke out those communities that are doing the hard work of transforming the culture that it's going to just kick that can so much further down the road of history.
Right.
What we're voting for is the freedom to have pregnancy resource centers. Look at Massachusetts. They're trying to destroy them right
I was
now.
just going
Right?
to say that.
Yep. Look at it. And
Same
look
with-
at, the efforts to choke out the Catholic schools in Oklahoma right now from the federal funds. This is taxpayer funds, excuse me. So what we're voting for is an America in which we can continue our work of transforming the culture and getting a culture of life back on its feet after Roe.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like an
The other
administration that
option-
wouldn't spy
yeah.
on my churches at a baseline. I mean,
Oh, yeah, surveillance.
If pro-life voters stay home, we run the risk of transforming the whole country into a blue state,
Right.
similar to Massachusetts, as you said, that goes after crisis pregnancy centers, or like California, where they spend money on billboards encouraging people to get an abortion. In other states, I mean, this is ridiculous.
Gavin Newsom he says California is a blueprint for America. You got to
Yikes.
believe him when he says that, guys.
I sure do. But yeah, I appreciate this is very candid. Like we obviously prepare for these shows, and this is one of those where I'm like, I'm not even really sure how people are going to respond. Sometimes this is an unpopular answer. So I appreciate everyone's perspective on this. We're all really in this together, but hopefully pushing in the right direction. So next up we have, should we do brief vice president predictions from Josh? Actually, you know what? I would
wanna
like
hear
your
Josh.
perspective on this. So it seems to me there's reports out there that we've kind of narrowed it down to 3 men: JD Vance, Marco Rubio, and Doug. Is it Bergen?
Bergen.
So
Who I saw
what
a
I'm
few
curious
months
your
ago.
perspective from a political wonk, advantages and disadvantages for each of these men, in your opinion. Go.
I mean, who do you want to go for? I mean,
Line 'em
look, North Dakota Governor Doug Bergen would be a disastrous pick in my mind. The only advantage here is that presumably he's on the older end of things and would not necessarily run 4 years from now, although who knows. He's a liberal Republican who tried to primary good conservatives out of office in the legislature in North Dakota. He vetoed a bill protecting women's sports. The guy is bad news. I mean, just because he's pro-business, I mean, I'm sick of this kind of stuff. Like, to me, he's a 2005 Republican. Get rid of him. Marco Rubio, obviously, he's from Florida. I love a lot of what he does. I've been a fan of his for a while. I didn't like his amnesty thing, but he's back 10 years ago. But he's moved away from that, thankfully, in a strong way. Rubio is from Florida. There is a penalty in the Constitution to have 2 people from the same state. So either Rubio or Trump would have to move out of Florida and establish residency somewhere else. That's the biggest negative. That's the same. That would apply as well to DeSantis. But I do think Rubio, I mean, he's rock solid. He cares about our issues, and he has to make some of these difficult prudential calls, just like JD Vance. I think either one of those would be outstanding.
He's also been on the Loopcast, so that would mean we'd have a Loopcast guest as vice president, which would be pretty sick.
That'd be kind of cool.
No.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I got that. JD Vance probably better understands, and I think is even better able to handle himself in terms of, I mean, I've never seen somebody more effectively communicate like the new era that we're in terms of
Great
populism in an intelligent way. It's not just throwing, red meat at the audience. He can do that too, but JD Vance is obviously the candidate that Kamala Harris most is worried about in
Debating.
a VP debate because, and
God.
everyone says it. I mean, JD Vance, Harvard educated, sharp as a tack, he would do very well, and he's very nimble, and he cuts to the quick, and that's why Donald Trump Jr. Says he's his favorite pick.
So Josh, can I ask
do
you?
have to disagree with Josh. Can I just throw in
Go
something?
for it.
Yeah, he said that Doug Bergen was old. And I just want to point out that Bergen is only 67.
Wow, he's fried spring chicken.
So like compared to the presidential candidates, we're like talking a whole generation younger there.
So true.
I don't know. Old is relative. So.
Also on Bergen, Josh, if he's a liberal Republican and he primaries good conservative, like why is he being considered? Like, put yourself in Trump's seat. Why? What advantage is there to have him?
Well, Doug Bergen was one. He also ran for president. He talked about, he was one of the first to say, yes, abortion should be down to the states. That was one of the reasons why I think Trump initially liked him. He's a successful businessman. He was a billionaire, and I think those are kind of things that resonate with Trump. Just similar background. I mean, obviously Trump is more on the celebrity side of things, but still they have that business background. So I think that's what kind of appeals to him. you know, more than just a regular old politician who's been in office forever. But then again, J.D. Vance, you know, he's only been in office for like 3 years or so. So it's not like he's a career politician either. Not that Rubio necessarily is. But
Right,
Rubio
but wouldn't
has,
there be a difference in baggage as well? Like, I think JD Vance is already kind of being targeted for being Catholic, for holding populist views. Like, he would bring on criticism that wouldn't come from someone like Bergen.
no, I mean, the people that are up, the pro-life Catholics are upset that J.D. Vance isn't, you know, that it seems to be squishing out here on that. And once they find out about Doug Bergen, they're going to be more upset about the governor of North Dakota. I guarantee you that.
That's
Cool.
right.
Well, that was a fun little segment. I got a few more I want to squeeze in before we get in the Twilight Zone. So, first off, pray for the repose of soul of Senator Inhoff from Oklahoma. Just passed away, age 89. He was he stepped down a year ago. So speaking about age and Senate, crazy. Politico Pro did not have the same approach. They did not ask.
There
for
was
the
no
repose of his
rest in
soul.
peace from Politico.
If I could get, if we could get that one pulled up, the headline reads:
They really honored him. Let me tell you.
Former Senator Jim Inhoff, who called climate change a hoax, dead at 89. The Oklahoma Republican held enormous sway over environmental policy during his time in the Senate. Now, I was even looking up like headlines for when Jeffrey Epstein died, and they didn't have anything about his rampant sex abuse. I think Fidel Castro died. They said he was a complex leader. Nothing as aggressive or negative as who called climate change a hoax. And I was like, what could he have done to offend people to the point of getting this? I'm like, well, first off, you committed blasphemy in the religion of climate change. But I also have the video. So he brought a snowball to Congress. I don't know if you saw this.
Can we watch this?
Yeah, can
I
we pull
wanna
this
watch.
video up? I had never seen the video before this, but I know some things just really warm Josh's heart, so I thought we'd pull this
I
one
love
up.
this guy. When you can make C-SPAN hot, that's just great.
Yeah, let's get volume on this.
He's got a picture of an igloo behind him.
Oh, do we have volume on this one? Yeah.
2014 has been the warmest year on record. I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball. And that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
I can't believe you threw that. Even he was kind of like,
He's making the point that global warming might be not quite what the environmentalists say.
some of my favorite comments too were he proved his point by lasting longer than 10 years, like by his age, because they always predicted the world was going to end in 10 years from climate change or whatever. It's like he outlived the prediction, so he beat him on that. Sorry, Josh, what were you saying?
Well, of course, you know, I hope and yearn for the day that I might be notable enough that like some left-wing Catholic rag would honor me by slandering, you know, Josh Mercer, climate change hoax, dead at 98 or whatever. I hope so. I hope I live. That's like, dude, I want commies to hate me so bad that they dance a little bit when I die. That's what you got to make them feel sweat.
I can see
on
the
this.
headline now. It's Joshua Mercer, noted Jesuit hater, dead at whatever.
Finally dead at 107 at SOB. You know, I mean, come on. Again, the Washington Post, right? When Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was assassinated, right? What did they
Great
say?
pronunciation.
They called him an austere religious scholar.
Ooh.
Oh my
Interesting.
gosh, you mean a mass murderer?
There's been some humdinger headlines over the
I mean,
past.
come on. So if only Jim Inhofe had been an austere religious scholar. Maybe.
Oh my god.
Or a terrorist.
Not to the right religion though, unfortunately.
Oh man.
So this is a badge of honor. I mean, just to think that 24-year-old political writer is so just spitting nails and it's like, oh, Jim Inhofe, he's so bad.
Climate denier.
Dude, speaking of, I looked into the author because I'm like, who's writing this? Sure enough, I mean, bingo is like a 24-year-old kid. He's like an environmental writer.
I like how you say
Gosh.
24-year-old kid.
You did.
I mean, kid compared to me, get wrecked. I'm old now.
You beat him by 2 years or whatever.
He wrote an article called Trump's Border Wall Caused, quote, significant cultural environmental damage, Watchdog finds.
Environmental
Like,
damage.
I wonder what his thoughts on Jim
You mean
Inhoff
more
But all-
environmental
but all
damage than
the
a
people's-
Greenpeace rally?
Right, exactly. And all the people streaming over the border, dropping their plastic water bottles everywhere. That's not an
dropping their
environmental
passports, dropping their
message.
identification so they can get a new name at the border. Learned all about that. Okay, and because I just really want to see Josh have to live through a segment talking about wedding dresses. So,
Yes, it's wedding season, guys.
listen, it's wedding season. You know, just was at one. It was cool. Many of you may know my background. I am somewhat in the photography industry. And there was a wedding that made the rounds. It was Olivia Culpo. She is a supermodel, reality TV star, yada, yada, yada. And you might be thinking bad, but it's actually pretty good. So let's get a picture of the dress. So there is Olivia and her husband, Christian McCaffrey, phenomenal running back for the 49ers. Very
They
beautiful
both
couple.
look dapper, and she just dressed incredibly modest and beautiful.
Yep. So if we could
Yep.
scroll down.
Very Grace Kelly, very beautiful.
Look at this dress. This is
Oh
like
my
that is
gosh.
like a timeless, elegant.
Mhm.
So she
Long
was interviewed by
high
Vogue.
neck.
So actually it's funny. This is like almost, I don't know how old this is at this point, but my wife is there's this famous photographer that did the wedding. So she was telling me about this before I'm even getting to this commentary. So it's been on my mind or dinner table conversation for a while.
I'm
And
falling
so
asleep here.
Exactly. Josh's falling asleep, but we're going to get into a little bit of the controversy here. So she did an interview
But
with
it's a
Vogue.
Dolce Gabbana, Josh.
I've never heard of that ice cream.
Oh gosh, this is so fun. So Josh, people, famous, attractive people, they do interviews with Vogue when they get married, apparently, and they talk about their wedding day, what they're going to do.
Just like I did, right?
Exactly. And so here's a quote from the Vogue article. It says, Olivia Culpo holds the following belief about marriage. It's a covenant. It's the beginning of the rest of your life, and it's a union and bond of two people forever. The model and former Miss Universe tells Vogue. So when it came to designing her wedding dress with Dolce & Gabbana, there was one note she stressed to the atelier. That's like Vogue fancy for me. I think it's like whoever made the dress. I wanted something that felt as serious as that commitment, she says. Another quote, Olivia wore a Dolce & Gabbana long sleeve crew neck crepe ball gown with a voluminous skirt and button line back. I didn't want it to exude sex in any way, shape, or form, she said of the dress.
Good for her.
That was awesome.
And
Timeless, covered, and elegant.
so how could, you're
This
thinking,
shouldn't
how
even
could
be
this make
news.
people
Everyone
angry?
should be doing this kind of
yeah.
thing.
Right. Well, people
But it
picked it
is.
up. Very famous social media, like wedding dress critiquers or whatever, picked it up and
The
said
Instagrams exploded.
she said this was a nice dress, but all of this things she said about it gave trad wife pick me vibes, and that she's running a conservative campaign because
I
she takes
think
marriage seriously.
Of her, yeah. It was great. I
Is she
love,
a trad pick me wife? Is that what's going on here? Or
and I think that one I was watching a few of the reaction videos getting ready for this, and one of the influencers said, I love the dress. If it was just about the dress, I'd be fine. It's a great dress. But all of the talk around the dress, because a dress is never just a dress, all the talk around the dress is giving me chills, and in a bad way. And you're just and it's because they just cannot take the Harrison Butker talk. They just cannot listen to the traditional wife. Like maybe a woman. And well, the thing is too, for me as a woman on my wedding day, there's always talk about, oh my gosh, the wedding night and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I don't want the focus to be on my body and the sex and all that. But at the wedding itself, at the Holy Mass, they had a Protestant ceremony, I believe. At that moment, you want the focus to be on the entire person. And the woman is supposed to represent the church, and the man is Jesus Christ to her. And this is a solemn moment in your life. You absolutely don't want it to be like, oh my gosh, look at her cleavage and like, look how low the back went. So this was, I love Culpo's dress. Many, many props to Culpo and her husband. And just, yeah. And to say that's to Vogue, like she probably knew this was going to blow up.
well, she grew up Catholic, I guess, is what I
Did
heard.
she?
Yeah, she grew up
that's
Catholic.
awesome.
Her mom was Catholic, something like that. It wasn't a Catholic wedding. But Erica, I can tell you why this got backlash, right?
Tell
Because
me.
two things. One, it's-
Mansplain it to me, Tom.
I'm gonna
Oh my
mansplain.
goodness.
Someone who's been to a lot of weddings. I think there's a lot of women that probably feel guilty about what they did for their own wedding. Number one. And then number two, what she's saying suggests that there's something beyond how a woman feels on her own wedding day. Like, I think that there's a lot of, people have kind of internalized, and I don't know if this is just like a liberal thing, liberalism thing, whatever, that like, it's all about me. It's about how I feel. Like the things that I'm going to do.
all
on the
about the
wedding day.
bride.
It's all about the bride. It's all about me. It's all about me. She's suggesting here that there's something larger than her that she's entering into.
It's not
that
her
she would
day.
want to prepare herself for. And that's so contrary to like an entire industry that's been propped up around weddings. Like if you think about how much money, I mean, I know how much money goes into all of that. But at its core, it's a philosophical question. The question is my wedding bigger than me? Is it bigger than what I want? And I think we all know the truth here is that yes, like a covenantal marriage is larger.
We do need to move away from this idea that the bride is the star of her own movie. Like,
Yes,
kind of
100%.
ridiculous.
Or even that like this day has to be absolutely perfect and a total self-expression of the couple, of the woman, that we have to move away from that day. It's a great day, but it is just a beginning, and there are so many great days and hard days to come that you can't throw all of your marriage prep into this one day at the expense of preparing for life together. And one of the influencers said that she saw Culpo's comments to Vogue as like a judgment on other women. And
my
that's the
goodness.
thing.
Of course it wasn't.
And of course it wasn't. If you actually read the words at their face value, she's just expressing her belief in the sacrament or the covenant.
It's interesting,
of marriage.
Erica, though, they say that, right? Because if you think about it, what they're saying is that somebody else's different choice on these matters has an influence and an effect on how they choose things. Well, isn't it likewise the same? Like if you dress like very, quote, sexy or whatever, aren't you influencing other people that way too? So isn't it a two-way street here? And and we weren't even trying to bring it up what you guys were doing, but you did. So let's talk.
Josh, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Josh is wrong.
No, he's right, but he's wrong.
He's sarcastically pretending to be them, right?
Yeah, no. And I think it is hard for people like, because if it was truly just one of those other, because if she would have wore like Vans or she would have wore something off the wall, like yellow dress or something, I would be like, oh my god.
Or a white tuxedo. Seen that
what
too.
an amazing truth. Yeah, exactly. But it's like when you suggest the truth and people aren't living in the truth, it's detestable.
Well, and I would say it is a judgment on people who are going too far the other way, and that's okay. Like when someone when someone upholds purity and modesty and this lifelong commitment and the seriousness of the occasion, and they say it out loud, that's calling everyone to a higher standard and a better way of life. So you
mean the standard we had for generations before we decided to throw it out the window
10 minutes ago,
Exactly. So good for you. Olivia, beautiful dress. Hope you and Christian have a long, happy marriage.
I like the dress.
Let's go now to Erica. I was going to say we can get into wedding dress talk, but
all right.
Josh and I didn't wear them.
We so far managed to. Is this Twilight Zone? Am I up?
Yeah, you're in the Twilight Zone.
Okay.
Now. What's going on?
All right, sweet. I am in the Twilight Zone. So we managed to go a whole episode without mentioning Joe Biden's age.
I'm so tired of talking about it.
I'm sorry. I have to bring this up because
I know, but like, how many ways can we say the man clearly has dementia? Oh my gosh. Go ahead.
My
Sorry,
goodness. But the White House has a solution to all of our qualms about his age. They're just going to rebrand it. So if we could roll this clip, this is Secretary of Defense? What's he doing? Yeah. No.
John Kirby.
This is Kirby.
It's the
John
Pentagon
Kirby.
spokesman Kirby, right?
After that, the president will hold a press conference. I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it, and take some questions from y'all.
Okay. Did everyone catch that? So the president, after his NATO meeting, is going to hold a press conference. It's going to be big, guys. It's going to be him and the press corps. And the White House is branding this as Joe Biden's big boy press conference. I'm just like, who workshopped this? What is going on? And then Corinne Jean-Pierre gets out there and she just keeps going. Corinne Jean-Pierre she repeats it twice. She's like, the big boy press conference on Thursday. You're all invited. The big boy press conference. You're just like, okay, what was the thinking here?
I hope he's gonna wear.
I'm thinking pull-ups. I'm thinking like, what?
I hope he's gonna wear his big boy underwear.
Big boy.
I mean, we're literally talking to the president of the United States like he's a damn infant. Like, what?
Yeah, like a 2-year-old potty training. That's what that sounds like to me as a mother. But
Well,
I
he's
guess
not potty
that's
trained.
the
That's
new
problem.
branding.
That's what Doug
Gosh.
Brandon
I mean, it's
actually
just
really
like,
means.
literally, I'm like,
Who
I'm
are
trying
these
to.
people?
It's being annoying. It's almost getting annoying. Like being on Twitter, everything is about the leader of the free world not functioning properly and being old. And they're
It's
like
been
talking
2
about.
weeks. It's not going away. It's
I know, and I'm
not
already
going
tired of it.
away.
I'm like, just step down. Just step down. Like,
No.
gosh, and he won't because Jill, his
Not
Dr.
gonna.
Jill, is keeping him afloat. She also
Queen
talks to him
Jill.
like a
You know what
toddler.
she did? Tom, did you hear about this? She had the Marine Corps do a song for
I
her.
did see that. I did see
So
that.
now
wrote
there
her a
is
song.
now there's a
walk-up
song for the
song.
first lady that welcomes her in, because we have the here comes the hail to the chief. Now
Right.
we have one for the first
Hail to
lady.
the first
so
lady.
You
Oh, gosh.
think she's going away? She's giving this up? You thought Hunter was the problem, dude. Queen
No,
Jill.
It's
No
coming
way.
out to be
Lady
Dr.
Macbeth.
Jill.
Oh my gosh.
Dr. Jill. Yeah, did you see
No,
that?
I refuse to call her Dr. Jill. Give me a
Did you
break.
see that KJP had to actually do her first do her job for the first time as press
She had to do her
secretary?
job.
Like for her entire time as press secretary, they lob her the ultimate softballs. And she just gets like the benefit of the doubt and everything. Like I remember how they treated
And then
McEnany.
Peter Ducey's like, why is everyone
Peter
suddenly
Ducey.
acting like me? It's crazy.
Yeah, like I remember when McEnany was getting literally bombed every day by every reporter, and now all of a sudden KJP's asked like, "Hey, a Parkinson's expert visited the White House. Like, why
8
didn't you tell
times.
us? We asked if someone was visiting. Why didn't you tell us?" She's like, "Well, we can't reveal the visitor logs for the safety of da 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 da." It's like he's like, "It's public information. I know about it. Like, why didn't
I'm reading
you
from
tell
your log,
Like,
right.
you're the press secretary. You're supposed to be forthcoming with the American people." And she's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm concerned about like guys like."
Yeah.
And this isn't even coming from like Fox. This is coming from I can't remember. He might have been New York Times or something. Like he wasn't like a Fox. And then Ducey comes up and is like, "What if, what if we
That
had to
wasn't
drop
Ducey.
a nuke after 10 p.m. or something like that?" I was like, "Oh my god."
Are you going to go wake him up? What are you going to do? Who's going to make the call here?
Dr. Jill, she gonna be dropping the
The
bombs?
queen.
I mean, my
Queen
goodness. Like,
Jill.
it's like hard to even this. I'm glad we waited for the Twilight Zone. I feel like I've been in the Twilight Zone looking at
Yeah.
the news for the past
And it just
2
keeps
weeks.
going.
And people are all like, "Hey, why is Trump so quiet? He hasn't appeared to the public. He's not talking." Trump's finally learned when your enemy's imploding, let them. You don't need to steal the
just
spotlight.
sit back. Yeah,
like,
he
he's ready to win.
finally did an event yesterday, right? That was like his first event since the
Right.
debate.
Yeah.
And he did lay in a little bit. He was talking about
On
hunters
golfing.
running the white, but it was still like for Trump standards. Yeah, he challenged him
He
to a
challenged him to
golf game.
match. Yeah.
Biden declined, for those of you wondering in the chat. Yeah, Biden.
What?
said
He's a
no.
6 handicap.
Oh man, I want to see that. Maybe we could have a golf game instead of a second debate. Although I kind of want to see the second debate.
No one's asked about my handicap. I'd be happy to play with those boys. Although Trump would probably kill me.
What is your handicap, Tom?
I'm at like a 16 right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not bad. I'd golf with the boys.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're ready to rock now, so new slur unlocked. So mine is the Daily Beast coverage of
Oh.
Senator Josh Hawley. So if we want to pull this one up here, we have Senator Josh Hawley assured the National Conservatism Conference on Monday that he is a Christian nationalist. Hawley, an ardent Bible-thumping Catholic, who
Whoa.
has previously written that America, as we know it, cannot survive without biblical Christianity, reiterated his Christian nationalist bona fides for the Conservative
Oh
Conference.
my gosh.
I've never heard Bible thumping Catholic before. I'm like, if someone actually meant that legitimately, I'd be kind of honored. It means, Catholics usually get a hard time for not reading the Bible.
Right.
But there's 2 problems with this. One, Josh Hawley is not Catholic.
That would
very
seem to be one
obviously not
obvious
Catholic.
problem, yeah.
And then the second obvious problem is there's no such phrase as Bible thumping Catholic. I think they're just like, we just hate Catholics. Like anyone associated with like being conservative on the right and is religious, they're now Catholic. Like they're the enemy of the state.
Oh
So-
my goodness.
I don't know. I mean, wasn't St. Jerome a Bible thumping Catholic?
Yeah, I mean, but
He
but
was.
maybe my issue is more with like the religious literacy. It's the petri dish treatment, as I
Oh
talk
my
about
gosh,
office,
yes.
is like
So illiterate.
non-existent on these 24-year-olds that are writing.
Let's
these
go to the
articles.
safari and look and investigate these Catholics.
Yeah,
And
right.
these Protestants, what are they?
Oh, and these are the same people who are like, we can't have the Bible in schools because the Bible
Oh, yeah.
condones slavery.
This is
in
why
the
we have
Bible. And they've never read the
religious
Bible.
illiteracy, right?
Yeah,
We laugh about that's actually a problem. Like
it is a
It
huge.
is.
it's
Yeah.
so like the
They're so
Bible.
ignorant.
The Bible is one of the oldest, like most sourced, highly accurate, like depictions
Bestseller
of
every
Western
year,
history.
baby.
Best history, bestseller all the time.
Yeah.
To think that that's not even on its own merits worth studying or somehow offensive or going to steer people the wrong way is insane. We built
It's
entire
willful
Western
ignorance,
society
yeah.
based off of biblical.
But you know what
instruction.
they're afraid of, Tom?
What?
The left is afraid for the same reason why people have called into Princeton University complaining about their kids, their secular kids taking classes with Robbie George, and then they come out and they will convert to being Catholics. It's the same
Uh-oh.
reason they shut down the Great Books School in Kansas in the late 1970s. It was a Great Books program there, and so many people went through the program and became Catholic, even though they weren't like saying, here's how to become Catholic.
Yeah.
They just got immersed in great books and they became Catholic. And the concern here is if you have the Ten Commandments allowed in the school, if you actually read the Bible just as if it's literature, which is what Louisiana's going to do, they're afraid that people would actually start to believe what is in this book. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? I mean,
100%.
they're not, that's not for nothing. I mean,
So you're saying this is a scare tactic essentially because you need to basically brand it as this.
they
like,
have to
scary,
have religion be
dangerous, otherwise-
taught and understood to be poison. But
Yeah.
that's critical to a
And they
communist
are.
view.
That is what they are taught.
That is a communist view. Yeah,
Religion
absolutely.
is
There's
the
no
problem.
space for that in communism.
That's right.
No question. Josh,
I got two.
Twilight Zone, man.
I got two Twilight Zones.
What's
Okay,
going
so
on?
this
Whoa,
is crazy,
what a
right?
day.
So this minor league baseball team is kind of in a bind, and injuries and pitchers. They need to get a pitcher, so they literally got on the phone, and they called up their state representative, who used to play baseball. And
No way.
And he takes the mound on Saturday and pitches a game. He went like 7 innings or whatever. He did
That's
a great
awesome.
job.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking, this is awesome because this guy's a Democrat. Why don't we keep him playing baseball and get him out of the Iowa legislature? Okay,
We have a new job for you.
yeah, come on, man. I mean, so.
He threw 100 pitches at 44 years old. That's insane.
That's awesome, isn't it? I mean, I just think that's cool. I mean,
That's insane.
Oh, hey, shout out to Ariel in the chat. That's her city. Hey, Ariel.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's great.
how did such a conservative city elect that guy, though? I don't know.
I don't know. That's crazy though. You know how hard it is to
kinda
throw
neat.
100 pitches after not being in practice? Like your arm
Yeah,
would fall off.
that's amazing.
That's impressive.
He's 44.
I mean,
Yeah.
Josh, you've seen the congressional baseball game. It's not like this.
Yeah, not usually. Republicans have been winning lately.
That's
That's
true.
even after they don't have Jim Bunning anymore. He was Hall of Fame pitcher, and then he got elected to the Senate in Kentucky back in the day. That was about 20 years ago. And they really
Yeah, I was
had
going to say, you got
ace
some
in the
heat
hole
on the
there.
mound there for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Okay, you got two?
Yeah, the second one is, I mean, politicians love to play these games, and pass. We always talk about the bills, how they have crazy names. This actually kind of made me laugh. Okay. So the House put forward a bill called the Stop Unaffordable Dishwasher Standards, or the SUDS Act.
That's awesome. Son.
Okay, you made me laugh.
It's
You made me
memorable.
laugh.
Yeah.
This bill would we're double teaming Iowa here. The congresswoman from Iowa
Shout out
put
Iowa.
forward this legislation that would put the brakes on the Biden administration's relentless assault on efficient, affordable, and reliable appliances for everyday Americans through overbearing regulations. So kudos. It passed the
Yeah.
House. It'll probably die in the Senate,
Of
but
course.
it's just one of those things where you have to remember, we did have that big win with the Supreme Court on the Chevron deference, but the court didn't say we're just going to eliminate 40 years of regulations that have been spawned through this way. You still have to, make a court case on this and fight this. So that, I don't know if it's the EPA or whatever that put all these stupid regulations on dishwashers and washing machines and make them so unusable practically. It's going to take a while to unwind it. But if Trump gets in there, we could fix that once and for all, and then they won't hopefully be able to do that. So I just want to remind people about that. And then also, I'm covering up my address, but this is just if you live in a state like I do in Michigan, where you can get on the permanent absentee ballot list, do it. I got my primary ballot here. I'm going to look it over, and you can hand it in. You can hand it in So you don't have to worry about the U.S. mail delivering your mail ballot back. But it's important because it's like, you know what? We get busy. Summertime's busy. My primary coming up in about 3 weeks. Now I know I'm going to have my ballot in secure because I get the ballot mailed right to me. I have time to look over the ballot, get it in. So I just want to make sure people remember, go to vote.gov, get registered to vote. If you live in a state where you do, vote by mail, get on. I got on the permanent absentee ballot list. Just send it to me every time. I don't want to ever miss any election.
Josh is so unafraid of being doxxed, he just will dox himself.
Hey, you know what? It's funny though. I did that. See, my kids were worried about that. They said, you mentioned you're at the, you live in Petoskey. What's going to happen? And I'm like, what am I afraid of? And so then I said, I live at the Marriott Center. Come get me. And what happened?
Exactly.
You know what happened over the 4th of July weekend? I had 2 different people come up. Like, first one's like, hey, I'm from Toledo, Ohio. We love listening to the LOOPcast, so I'm your biggest fan. And then another person came in and goes, I've been to Petoskey so many times. I never knew about the Marriott Center. I came by so she comes in and she goes, hello, Petoskey Oracle. So, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not afraid of being doxxed. The founding fathers, they put their necks on the line. So what, I'm worried about someone's going to find out where I live. Come on.
Amen, brother. Also, I was off. You mentioned Chevron going down for the liberal meltdown over that. I was off for that week. And I just have one joke that I really need to get off my chest. I thought this was pretty funny. Like the saying when people are like, oh, are you a fan of like this band? Name 5 songs.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, you a fan of Chevron? Name 5 regulatory agencies. I thought that was really funny. And I didn't get enough credit for it. So I need to get that off my chest now. Like everyone's like all of a sudden the biggest fan of the deep state and all these regulatory agencies no one even knows. And they're like, this is terrible. It's end of democracy. I'm like, I hate regulatory agencies.
The best was the liberals whining about all the constitutional scholars that spent all their years studying
making the classes.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Yeah,
administrative lawyers are going to suffer. I'm like, oh, that's sad.
Yeah, all the professors that made classes around Chevron, like, okay, I think they'll be all right. Look, you got your wife in the chat.
Yeah, Lori. Hey,
Shout
out.
Wow, look at that little support.
I'm not even looking at the chat. I hope she's saying good things.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll just keep it intentionally vague. Thank you for tuning into the show. Super fun having everyone in the chat, especially Josh's wife. What's up, Mrs. Mercer? But thank you guys for joining live. We appreciate it. If you want to stick around, subscribe, like it, put on notifications. We're going to be live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have a ton of fun here. Love when the chat gets involved. You can listen afterwards on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review there. We like those. If you want to email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. I really appreciate it. I think as we kind of like talked about earlier with this episode, I got some great perspectives on the JD Vance stuff. Someone gave me a great email on Julian Assange, which I appreciate. Someone who was in military intel.
I want to read that.
It was very interesting. Yeah. I really appreciate his perspective. And then he's like, oh, I feel like you responded. I'm like, I feel like you responded to a celebrity. I'm like, no, dude. Like, I was happy you emailed me. I'm like, you spent 30 years in military intelligence. Like, I learned a lot there. So I love when people email. So you can do that at loopcast@catholicvote.org. Shout out to everyone who does. And if you want to support us, become a champion. You can become a champion at catholicvote.org/champions. Thank you to everyone who supports us. It's the only way we can do this. Truly, this is why we do it, is for you guys, people that support us. And the best way to do so is becoming a champion, a monthly donor. Also, pray for us. St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Fidelis. Pray for us. Thank you guys for joining this Wednesday show. We will see you guys fresh on Friday. Peace.